Today, we are rejoicing that it looks like we have the person who killed our daughter.
Katie's law has a lot to do with it.
Catherine J. Sepich, whom everyone called Katie, grew up in Carlsbad, New Mexico, as the oldest of 3 children. She earned a degree in business at New Mexico State University and was preparing to begin graduate school to obtain her MBA. According to her family, she was a bold, lively, and quick-witted 22-year-old woman, a natural leader who always had a clear vision of what she wanted and the determination to achieve it. Her father, Dave, often said that there was something extraordinary about her. From the very beginning, she was full of energy, like a spark that never faded. It seemed as though she had moved through her entire life at 90 miles per hour. Even in early childhood, she was loud, temperamental, and a bright personality, constantly putting on little performances for the family or diving headfirst into any sport she could join. She had a sharp tongue, playful audacity, and lightning-fast humor. Her friend Amy remembered her as a truly rare person. You don't often meet someone who is as beautiful as she was and at the same time so self-deprecating, she said. Katie knew how to laugh at herself, joke about her flaws, and willingly become the butt of the joke, doing so confidently and making everyone around her laugh to tears. For her younger sister, Caroline, Katie saw life as one big adventure waiting to unfold. She had a warm and friendly nature, but at times she could be a little bossy. Katie loved to lead plans and preferred her adventures to follow the path she imagined. She would confidently announce, "This is what we're doing. Let's go." And at 3 a.m., Katie left the house alone, slamming the door behind her. Later, Joe and one of his friends and acknowledged that he had been annoyed with her. With a sense of alarm, Tracy hurried home and immediately went into Katie's room. Nothing had been disturbed. Tracy's mother was also there and had not heard a single sound during the night. They began calling local hospitals, hoping, and at the same time fearing, that she might have been admitted. Nothing. Next, they contacted the police department, thinking that perhaps she had been detained for public intoxication. Again, nothing. Could she have stayed at someone's house Tracy had not thought to call? Could she have been hit by a car and be lying somewhere injured? Their thoughts cycled through the worst-case scenarios. The uncertainty was unbearable. It was time to officially report Katie missing.
22-year-old graduate student Katie Sepich was walking home from a late Saturday night party. Tonight's investigators have made the case a top priority.
We're interviewing witnesses, family, friends, anybody that may have seen her that night at the bars here in town.
Less than 200 meters away, that morning Katie's mother, Joanne, woke up with a stunning feeling that something was wrong. She could not explain it or point to anything specific. It was simply a deep, unsettling sensation. Call it mother's intuition. From the moment I opened my eyes that day, I felt intense anxiety. And then at 2:15 that day, the phone rang, and just 6 words shattered our world. "Have you talked to Katie today?" Soon, police officers arrived at the student's house. Walking around the back of the property, they came across their first significant clue. It appeared that Katie had indeed made it home. Investigators noticed that the screen on the back window had been damaged. One of her sandals lay on the ground nearby. The gravel beneath it looked disturbed, almost as if someone had been dragged across it. And while officers continued to examine the area around the house, earlier that same day, a separate investigation had already begun.
As we drove up, as I glanced over, I saw what appeared to be a body, a partially nude body. I was looking for signs of life.
At 11 a.m., a couple who were hunting near an old landfill east of Las Cruces, New Mexico, noticed something disturbing in the distance. The body of a partially unclothed woman lay on the ground. There were burn marks on her back and shoulders, and her legs had been deliberately positioned and spread apart. Nearby, tire tracks indicated that a larger vehicle, possibly a pickup truck, had transported her there and left the body at that location. Within just a few hours, the connection became clear when 22-year-old Katie was officially reported missing. Considering how vast and remote that desert area was, the fact that the couple happened to be there at that exact moment was pure coincidence. Due to the extreme heat and the presence of wildlife in the area, there was a real risk that her remains might never have been found, or that decomposition would have progressed so far that determining the cause of death would have been impossible. Police contacted Tracy and asked her to come in for identification in connection with Katie's missing person case. Without hesitation, she agreed. She assumed it was merely a formality. Perhaps Katie had shown up at a police station or hospital without identification and needed someone to confirm who she was. She had no idea what she was about to face. When investigators pulled back the top portion of the body bag, Tracy was stunned. She later said that the expression on Katie's face gave the impression that she had died in agony. It did not resemble the joyful, lively friend she had known. The autopsy revealed that Katie had been raped and strangled. A liquid substance had been poured onto her back and shoulders, and she had been partially set on fire before the flames extinguished themselves. Beneath her fingernails, investigators discovered bloody DNA, clear evidence that she had desperately fought for her life until the very end. In the desert area where her body was found, there were no signs of a struggle, leading law enforcement to conclude that she had been attacked and killed elsewhere, possibly near her home or just outside it. Her watch and the 2 rings she wore were missing, likely taken by her killer. Her parents said that Katie had always had a very raspy voice and physically could not scream. It had been that way since childhood. When she tried, only a weak, hoarse sound came from her throat. She simply could not produce a loud cry for help. This detail deeply haunted those who knew her, the thought that she may have tried to scream but was unable to make herself heard. The DNA collected from beneath her fingernails was entered into Cody's. Despite the brutality of the crime and the significant amount of evidence collected, there were no matches, a result that felt especially disturbing given the severity of what had occurred. Investigators had hoped that the DNA would produce a match linked to a previously convicted offender, but nothing came back. With no immediate leads, they returned to the scene of the house party and began questioning the people closest to Katie, including her roommate Tracy and her boyfriend Joe. During his conversation with detectives, Joe was not entirely forthcoming about the argument that had taken place that night. He downplayed the tension between them, explaining that although their relationship had been complicated and the distance caused by their upcoming moves would have been a challenge, he still saw a future with her. According to Joe, he had planned to one day marry Katie and build a life and family together. They had even looked at rings, and he had purchased one with her birthstone. They never officially defined what it meant, but it symbolized something significant, almost like a promise ring, reflecting the future he believed they were meant to share.
You know you're here.
Yeah.
You know it's not good. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Girlfriend Katie is passed away. Okay?
Get married.
Need some clean ass.
However, suspicions began to grow when Joe eventually admitted that he and Katie had argued that morning and that at the party, while intoxicated, he had kissed another woman. Even more telling was another fact. Out of nearly 40 people who had been present at the house party, he was the only one who refused to provide a DNA sample.
I was hoping you could tell me a little bit more about what happened.
Just last night, she got mad at me. Came home from the bar. She got mad at me because I was kind of pulling her off my roommate's sister. She walked in and then she left. And that's the last, that's the last time I saw her. I drove by her house. Her light wasn't on, so I didn't stop. I was really drunk. I really didn't care. I kind of like that. I don't think I don't care about a relationship very much. I'm not really faithful as I should be.
Joe firmly denied any involvement in what had happened to Katie. Yes, they had argued. Yes, the night had spiraled out of control. But to be responsible for her death? Absolutely not. According to him, despite the argument and everything that had gone wrong, he was not a killer. He said,
Did you kill her?
No, sir.
How did it happen?
What, sir?
Or dead?
I don't know, sir. I know nothing about it. Sir, I know nothing about it. I feel so bad. Katie was everything to me.
If she was everything to you, why were you screwing around on her?
I know, sir. I get drunk. I'm stupid, you know.
That morning, Joe made several calls to Katie's phone, but partygoers noted that at that time her phone was in his possession, along with her purse and keys. So why call at all? Was it an attempt to create an alibi? Within days of Katie's murder, Joe left town, traveling 300 miles to his family's home. When investigators asked him to return for a second interview, he refused. His parents hired an attorney for him who advised him, as expected, to remain silent. By that point, police had almost entirely focused on him. His behavior from the beginning had been unusual. This was the same man who had tearfully told detectives that he could not imagine life without Katie and wanted to marry her. However, to everyone else, it appeared as though he was deliberately distancing himself from the investigation, refusing to cooperate and avoiding even the simplest questions. His attorney stated that Joe did not like how the investigation was being handled and chose to step back. From a legal standpoint, if police did not have sufficient grounds, they could not force him to return, give another interview, or provide a DNA sample. Katie's family was stunned. Their experience with Joe had always been positive. He seemed to genuinely adore Katie. From the very beginning, her parents assumed that her murder had been committed by a stranger, a random attack, not someone she knew, and certainly not Joe. Tracy felt the same way. More than 1,000 people attended Katie's funeral. The crowd was so large that speakers had to be set up outside, so those who could not fit inside the church could hear. The only person who was not there was Joe. After hearing that people were openly expressing their disapproval of his presence, he chose to stay as far away as possible. For Katie's family, this became yet another layer of confusion and pain. They could not understand his actions. Outside the church, among the large number of parked cars, the investigation continued. Detectives examined tires, hoping to match them to the tracks found near Katie's body, but there were no matches. In an effort to uncover any sign of Joe's involvement, they even installed a hidden camera near her grave, thinking he might come and reveal something. But once again, nothing. A $50,000 reward was announced for information, and plans were already in place to double that amount. But the investigation took a significant turn when detectives finally obtained Joe's DNA from Katie's room, and it completely cleared him of any involvement. Upon learning this, Joe spoke with investigators and agreed to provide a DNA sample. He explained that he had previously refused because he and Katie had recently been intimate, and he feared that the presence of his DNA might somehow compromise him. After that, Joe was officially no longer a suspect, allowing police to move forward, although valuable time had already been lost. Detective Mark Mears expressed his frustration, saying, "It would have been hard for me to restrain myself from punching him in the throat. The way Joe could have simply done what was needed for Katie's family, and didn't do it. His changing stories, his lack of cooperation, none of that was really necessary." Dave, Katie's father, agreed, noting how much time had been lost focusing on Joe when it could have been avoided. Soon, investigators came across what appeared to be a new lead, 1,500 meters away. 11 days before Katie's murder, a 25-year-old woman in Green Bay, Wisconsin, had been attacked by two men. After arguing with her boyfriend, she left a bar and walked into the night. Two men forced her into the bed of a truck and drove her to a remote farm. There, she was raped, strangled, doused with liquid, set on fire, and left to die. Despite the severity of her injuries, the woman managed to crawl to the nearest house, where the homeowner immediately called 911 for help.
You know what the vehicle was that these people were in? Oh, now I can smell the burn on her. You can smell the burn? Yeah, you know, her flesh. Now we can see you were lit on fire. Was there one or two people? Do you know, what did they look like? Were they tall? Short?
Incredibly, the woman survived the attack and was able to provide enough details about her assailants for police to create composite sketches. The similarity between her case and Katie's was so striking that investigators were forced to consider a possible connection, even though the incidents had occurred hundreds of miles apart. Since there were few leads locally, every possible avenue had to be explored. When the sketches were released, the dairy farm manager immediately recognized the men. They were two of his employees, 27-year-old Gregorio Morales and 23-year-old Juanito. The pair had fled the town shortly after the attack, but Gregorio had recently returned to work. The manager, working with law enforcement, devised a plan to obtain his DNA. By offering Gregorio a drink, he secretly preserved the bottle and handed it over to the police. A few months later, his DNA matched the DNA of the Green Bay victim. Gregorio was convicted on 2 counts of sexual assault, kidnapping, and first-degree reckless bodily injury, receiving a 50-year prison sentence. Juanito, who was believed to have poured liquid on the victim before setting her on fire, was also arrested and struck a plea deal with prosecutors, resulting in a 70-year sentence. Despite the striking similarity of the crimes, neither Gregorio's nor Juanito's DNA matched the Katie case. Detectives described this not as a back-to-square-one moment, but rather as a 0 point. The level of frustration grew as time passed with no answers. By that point, more than 2 years had elapsed since Katie's body had been found. To understand what ultimately helped solve the case, it is worth looking back a bit. 9 weeks after Katie's murder, a man armed with a knife broke into the apartment of 2 New Mexico State students. Anela and Leslie managed to hide in the bathroom and made a terrifying 911 call.
911, what city? What's your emergency?
I believe someone trying to break into our house.
What's your name?
Anela. Oh.
Vanilla? I need you to calm down, okay? You there?
No.
The 23-year-old Gabriel Ayla was arrested in time. Shockingly, the judge allowed him to be released on bail, stating that it was necessary for him to get his affairs in order, a decision that continues to perplex investigators. Facing up to 9 years in prison for unlawful entry, Gabriel fled to Mexico and remained a fugitive until 2005. He was eventually apprehended while attempting to re-enter the United States, and a year later, he was convicted of aggravated unlawful entry with intent to commit aggravated assault. He received a 9-year prison sentence. While in prison, Gabriel was required to provide a DNA sample. Detectives were stunned when it was discovered to match the DNA from the Katie case, something unknown to law enforcement in Las Cruces or anyone in Katie's circle. Even his ex-wife, who had filed for divorce after his conviction for unlawful entry, had unwittingly preserved a key piece of evidence, a ring she found in his truck, Katie's ring. Police investigated the truck Gabriel had been driving at the time of Katie's murder. Although he had sold it, his ex-wife was able to contact the new owners. Despite the tires having been replaced, investigators recovered the originals, another direct link to the crime scene. Before the trial began, Gabriel confessed. He admitted that on the morning of the attack, he had almost hit Katie with his truck after leaving his dealer to buy cocaine. He had stopped and offered to give her a ride home, but she refused. She was only a few blocks away. According to him, she appeared intoxicated, although she insisted she was fine. Gabriel drove away, but a few minutes later, he passed by again and saw her outside, trying to enter her home through a window. He asked if she was okay, and she explained, "I just can't get into my house. I don't have my purse." According to Gabriel, at that moment he snapped and carried out the attack. He raped her, strangled her to death, placed her body in his truck, and drove away, attempting to destroy evidence by setting her on fire. Detective Mark Mears commented on the extraordinary coincidence, noting that the odds of Gabriel encountering Katie that night were virtually 0. If she had stepped outside just 30 seconds earlier, or even a minute earlier or later, he would never have seen her. He said,
Today, we are rejoicing that it looks like we have the person who killed our daughter. We're so incredibly grateful for all of the hard work.
The day after Christmas, Gabriel Ayla was officially charged with murder and kidnapping on a day that would have been Katie's 26th birthday. District Attorney Susana Martinez made it clear that she had no intention of dropping any charges and that there would be no plea deal negotiations. She firmly emphasized that there was no chance of losing this case, and both Gabriel and his attorneys understood that. In May 2007, Gabriel Lavilla pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, rape, kidnapping, and obstruction of justice. During the trial, he asked for the opportunity to apologize to the Sepich family, admitting that he did not know why he had committed the crime. Dave, Katie's father, noted that he could see and hear Gabriel's genuine remorse, a small consolation, but it did not change the outcome. Jan, Katie's mother, said that she forgave him, not for his sake, but so that he might have a chance at redemption. Gabriel was sentenced to 69 years in prison. He will be eligible for parole in 2043, after serving 30 years, though given the extreme brutality of his actions, it seems highly unlikely that parole will ever be granted.
18. That's how many cold cases one New Mexico police department has reopened just this year. Officers say the success of Katie's Law has a lot to do with it.
Katie's family channeled their grief into action, determined to find a way to turn the tragedy into something meaningful. When Katie's body was discovered, the law in New Mexico, as in nearly every other state at the time, did not allow authorities to collect DNA upon arrest. DNA was only entered into the system after someone was convicted and sent to prison. Diane recalled, "I started researching. I learned that in almost every state, DNA was collected only after a conviction for a serious crime, and at that time, only 5 states had laws allowing DNA collection at the time of arrest for a serious crime. I kept digging, reading case studies, and finding examples of lives that could have been saved." She quickly realized that her goal was not just to gather DNA to solve her daughter's murder. She sought broader changes that could prevent future crimes and save thousands of lives. Diane came across the story of Chester Dwayne Turner, who had been arrested in California for an assault with a deadly weapon. Because there was insufficient evidence for a conviction, his DNA was not collected. Turner was arrested 21 more times before his DNA was finally taken, and that sample ultimately matched evidence from the crime scenes of 12 rape and murder victims. Diane realized then that the system needed to change. Something as simple as collecting DNA at the time of arrest could literally prevent numerous tragedies.
You might remember the name Katie Sepich. Her name is back in the headlines. On Friday, the Senate passed Katie's Law, a bill that would help states set up DNA databases for people arrested for felonies.
Victory tonight for one New Mexico family trying to make sure their daughter's murder resulted in meaningful action. President Obama has just signed a nationwide version of Katie's Law. New Mexico has already had Katie's Law on the books since 2007. It's named for former NMSU student Katie Sepich.
A bill to expand the state's Katie's Law is also moving forward at the Roundhouse.
It's a bittersweet week for the family of Katie Sepich.
I'm proud to say that 2 days after what would have been Katie's 32nd birthday, the Senate passed our bill unanimously.
The day after Christmas was Katie's birthday. She would have been 32. And so, we still miss her every day.
Katie's Law was enacted in New Mexico in 2006, marking a significant turning point. The law requires anyone arrested for a violent crime to provide a DNA sample. Yana realized that if Katie's Law had been in effect when Gabriel attacked Danella and Leslie less than 3 months after Katie's murder, he would have been required to provide DNA, potentially removing him from the streets sooner. While it would not have saved her daughter, it could have prevented further crimes. Since then, 31 states have enacted Katie's Law or implemented similar programs. In 2011, the law was expanded to cover all arrests for serious crimes. Yana also founded DNA Saves, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating legislators and the public about the impact and power of DNA testing. After nearly 20 years of campaigning, Katie's family acknowledges that they will never know the names of the people whose lives were directly protected or whose crimes were solved because of Katie's Law. Yet, the knowledge that people have been helped sustains their motivation. They firmly believe that Katie's Law will continue to solve thousands of cold cases, prevent the loss of innocent lives, and protect innocent people from wrongful harm.
Polling this afternoon as Albuquerque police took in a suspect in the rape of an elderly woman. 27-year-old Francisco Perez is accused of attacking the 76-year-old victim at Alamosa Elementary School. Tonight, Albuquerque police are crediting a state DNA collection law known as Katie's Law for helping them find Perez.
They're decade-old rape and murder cases that have haunted the state for years, like the killing of Susan Laporte and the strangling of Maria Padilla, both in 1985. But now the Santa Fe Police Department is reopening hundreds of those cold cases, 318 to be exact. Lieutenant Andrea Dobbins says the PD has a freezer full of evidence. In July, police sent thousands of pieces of hair, blood, and clothing samples to the state crime lab to try and finally crack some of those cases. Just recently, they sent even more DNA samples. Dobbins says the big push to solve the cold cases is the success of Katie's Law.
Katie's younger brother, AJ, said he had always admired his older sister. She was like having a mom and a sister rolled into one. He fondly recalled trying to be her backup singer during family performances. Although she didn't always want to share the spotlight, when it came to having his back, she never hesitated. "No one messed with me," he said. She was fiercely protective. It's such a blow to your soul. You really don't know how to move forward. You can't see beyond the next minute, the next breath. Katie was hard to handle, but at the same time, she was an incredible support when she was there on your side. She was always my protector, but also my best friend. Caroline, who was only 9 years old when she lost her sister, noted, "My visual memories of life immediately after my sister's death are very clear and sharp, but they are not bright. It's as if this incredibly bright light of love just disappeared." Jan, Katie's mother, over the years had to change her worldview and mindset. She explained how easy it is to get caught in a cycle of if only and maybe, obsessing over everything that could, should, or might have happened. But after losing Katie, she consciously tries not to use that word. "It doesn't make sense," she said. "It only makes you sad. Face what is. Try to change what you can, but don't look back and say, what if?"